Section 8 clients. Do you get like a list of people?
My name is Aline, and I just recently.
Okay.
So think about your workflow. Again,
I don't know how to do it.
I know how to do it, and I'm trying to instruct other people to do better in their business, but I also have to do better in my business.
Hey, everyone out there in YouTube land and our Metro Detroit off-market Facebook group. I hope you're having a wonderful day. It is Monday. Hope you don't have a case of the Mondays. So, but this great gentleman that we have here, I've known him for quite a while, just with the meetups in this Metro Detroit area. I've looked to him for some advice on some things and try to sell him some deals as well, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, you know. But Jay Peltier is a great guy to know in this area, because not only is he an investor, but he is an open book, and that is one thing. The reason why I'm bringing him on here, I use the title expert in Section 8 because, in my opinion, every time I have a question about Section 8, I go to him. He's my guy that I go to if I have any questions about Section 8. So, but he's basically just going to go about his experience on Section 8, and we're going to tell his origin story, how he got started, and so on and so forth. So if you do have questions about anything that is pertaining to what we're talking about, please do put them in the chat. We'll answer them as we go. So without further ado, Jay, how you doing today?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing great, Randy.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay, for joining us. I know it's pretty late on a Monday, so I always appreciate it when anybody does come and join us. So with that being said, I know you don't like the word expert and everything, but we're just going to go by your experience, as far as Section 8 goes. In my opinion, you're an expert in Section 8. So even the littlest stuff, that's, you're like an encyclopedia for it. So, but even general in, just in rentals and things like that, like you're awesome. So, tell me a little bit about, let's back up here a little bit and say, how did you get started in real estate in general?
I would have to say my mother was the biggest influence in that, I suppose. She was a real estate agent for many years. And when I first got out of the Army, was bugging me. She worked for a guy that had untold hundreds of properties in Detroit, in the metro area. And she kept saying that, hey, this is something you need to get into. I always wanted something a little better than just, working a 9-to-5 job. I always had little side jobs and all, but
right.
I was a little afraid at first to get into it. And she kind of prodded me a little bit, got me, spoke to a few people that, that were in the business. I suppose the one big guy in particular, his name's Rick Conflitti. He's been in the business forever. But she says, hey, I've got this one, little house. It's an E-course, which is a long drive for me. I was in Warren at the time. And she's like, hey, you got to buy this house. It's this little dinky 2-bedroom frame on a crawl, no garage, no base, just this little thing. But it was fairly cheap, $17,000 at the time. And so I actually sold an old Mustang I had. I still regret that.
What year was the Mustang, first off?
I'm a
Mustang fan.
A 69
Fastback. Shit.
So yes, I was. I brought that back from North Carolina. I found that when I was in the Army, and I sold that as part of the money to buy this property. I barely had enough money to buy the property. So I like was really like, not paying my own gas and electric. They were like threatening to shut off while I was working on this property.
Right.
And I did 90% of the work myself. And I got it finished it, rented it probably 650 or 700 if I remember right. This is back in the 90s. And
was it early 90s, mid 90s?
Mid 90s.
Okay.
And I refied it about 6 months from when I bought the property. I got like 45,000 out of it. And so, apparently it was a good deal at 17,000 if I got 45 cash in my hand.
Yeah.
And I took that money and I bought 2 properties in Detroit, fixed both of them up, rented both of them, sold one, kept one.
Okay.
More properties in Detroit, fixed both of them up, rinse and repeat. So I did that for quite a while. And then kind of moved. I've done a little of everything. So that's the beginnings, I suppose, to answer your question.
Yeah. So you fixed 2 of them up. You sold one to get some cash now and kept one to keep some cash flow coming in.
Exactly.
So that's a smart idea right there.
It's the Burr method, except I didn't
Yeah.
necessarily refi. I sold one to pay, I did 2 at a time.
So with that, what were interest rates at that time? I mean, because in the mid 90s, they weren't no 5%,
No, it'll never be that again. I want to say that first one that I refied was probably in the 8 or 9%.
Okay.
And jumping forward in the story, I was a mortgage broker for 5 years or so in the 2000s. And
Okay.
I love to hear people, oh my God, I can't stand, 7% interest rate for, I was a subprime lender, and,
Yeah.
Rates can be anywhere from 12 to 18% for an investment property in the mid 2000s. So,
Right.
7% is terrible. No, it's not. Historically, we're still pretty good. This is about where we should be, actually. I think it went
Most
down.
definitely.
So,
Jason from the Facebook group says, I love 7% interest.
yeah.
That's awesome. And Terry Penny is saying, I hear you.
Hi, Terry.
You hear me saying this all the time. So, but yeah, 100%. And the thing is that, so tell me a little bit about, you started doing this. Was that it? Were you hooked? Did you just do nothing but real estate ever since then? Like, what was your progression?
I was an IT guy at the time.
Oh, okay.
And I was kind of like doing 3 things at once. I was, had a day job, IT. I used to fly to Chicago, actually, 4 days a week and work over there in one of the hospitals as an IT guy. Yep. I'd come back for the weekends and I'd work on computers. And then in my spare time, I would fix up a house. I've always had kind of too many things in the hopper, but that was the starting of it. And then slowly but surely, I started getting a few more properties. And in the early 2000s, the company that I worked for, I worked for Dana Corporation. It was a big company. Dana Rear Ends, an auto supplier. And I'd been there about 5 years, I think, at the time. And they they went into bankruptcy, told everybody, hey, this division is going to be sold off. Right. There's nothing you do. Everybody's going to be laid off, and just get used to it. You got about 3 months. And sure enough, about 3 months came, and slowly but surely I'm turning off everybody's passwords. And well, then my time came, and a buddy of mine that I had at the time, I called him up actually right after I got laid off. Even before I called my wife, I was still kind of, even though I knew it was happening, it's still kind of,
it's still in shock,
And called him up and said, oh, you got laid off. And he's like, come on to lunch with me. We'll talk. So he's a mortgage guy, and he owned a little real estate, a little mortgage company. And he said, during the lunch, he's like, you need to come to work with me. And I'm like, Neil, you've been trying to get me to come to you forever. I'm not a mortgage guy. I'm an IT guy. And he's like, no, you don't understand. My wife has already moved down to Florida with my kids. We already got a house down there. I want to retire and I want to go to Florida. give me 6 months. The company will be yours. Just give me a little profit. That was a small real estate, small mortgage company, 5 employees or so, give or take. But it's still, it's not every day somebody says, hey, you're my buddy, and I'm going to, give you their company.
Right.
That I did very well with it for a while. I was a loan officer, or started a processing loan officer, and then I ran the company for 5-7 years or so until the crash happened. And I did great, but I was a wholesaler at the time. I switched from doing rentals to flipping almost exclusively. I got rid of most of my rentals and started buying in Warren and in other, East Point, etc., Roseville, Sinclair Shores, whatever.
Macomb County.
That was my bread and butter. I was born in Detroit, and that's whole East Side there. That was my bread and butter. So I started doing that, and of course, I was making money hand over fist. Wholesaling, I couldn't sleep at night, but I did it for a little while, making a lot of money with that.
Why couldn't you sleep at night doing wholesale? As a wholesaler, I want to know.
Well, I think we've had this discussion before, but as any good wholesaler, as in somebody that is truly going to make a lot of money, has to be a good liar. Honestly, you have to either lie to the buyer, lie to the seller, or lie to both. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't good wholesalers. I think you're one of the good ones there, Randy. But
thank you. I appreciate that.
There are people that will try to wholesale a property. Oh, they got it for $10,000 under contract and try and sell it for $50 or $100. That to me is not a good wholesaler. But there's making money, and then there's making money. And unfortunately, I was the latter. I made some really good money off of some people back then, and I could barely sleep at night with some of the stuff that this guy taught me, I guess you'd say. He was my best friend, but wasn't the most scrupulous guy in the world. And I learned a lot of, what I didn't want to be, I suppose, at that time. And
most definitely. But and that's kind of what I see. That's what I see a lot. It's just from the older, like now that you see that there are a lot of people out there, like, okay, yeah, you're dishonest. You were taught that way. It's like people can see through that now, and you're just going to double down on those lies, and it's just not going to work out. So I be as honest as possible. I may say things a little bit differently and not exactly use the right terminology where they would do it, but I tell them exactly what I'm doing, just in a different way. That's all, Absolutely. So I don't lie to them. I just say, hey, I'm working with my partners on this. I may pass it along to them, and I let them know up front that, hey, if I do this, you'll still be working with me throughout the whole time, and you'll get exactly what's in your contract. And I ask them, do you have a problem with that if we do go that route? And they're like, as long as I get what I'm promised, I don't care.
This just turned into the Randy Stedman interview, ladies and gentlemen.
I know, right? So, all right. So we'll get back to you. Sorry about that. But so with that being said, you went through, you were doing these mortgages, and then you were wholesaling. Essentially, were you wholesaling in them while you were doing the mortgages?
Yes. Had a couple people that would come to us and say, hey, I've got this really cheap property, and can you buy it and it was a piece of junk. And we were finding people that wanted to get into the investing game and really weren't that smart, essentially. Again, I wasn't proud of the things I did, but we would find, and in Detroit, I love how wholesalers love to call, the ARV value. Well, I had a property I was buying for $20,000, and I could get an appraisal the next day for $80,000 or $70,000. It's the same thing today. There's such a disparity between what a property truly is worth and what some people think it's worth, I guess. But so I was selling these properties, making these good, chump change in between. I did mortgages still. I still had my own flips that I was doing as well. And I just, and the important part here is I was spending like a madman. going on
Yes.
trips, and
Oh,
I built a 40 by 80 pole barn that cost me $80,000. I bought a few
okay.
cars. You know, I was fixing up my house. I moved up north and was fixing up my place and doing all these things and spending all this money. And this is in the 2007 and 2008 time frame, and I didn't have hardly any rentals left.
Eee. Okay.
So I got to the point. I actually right around that time, the prices started kind of doing this.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I bought 3 properties right here. And then, of
Ooh.
course, like within a month or two, pew.
Yeah.
So I had 3 properties that, you know, I thought I got a great deal on and spent, you know, tons of money fixing the places up and tried to sell it. And it took me a solid year to sell these properties. I mean, I've said this
Mhm.
story 100 times to people that are listening. I'm sure they've heard it, but um, the short of the story is that I was still spending money, like, you
Mhm.
know, like nothing. Oh, it'll turn around. It'll turn around. Nobody ever saw that crash coming, you know, and fixed the properties up, tried to sell them, and it took me a solid year to sell the properties. And I made about 5 grand profit on each one. I don't think I've ever lost money on any house I've ever bought. But when you're holding on to 3 properties for a solid year and made a
Yeah.
whopping $5,000 profit and
That
spending
holding
like 10
cost.
million, I
Yeah.
lost my
That
butt.
holding cost is
Yeah.
crazy.
So I lost my
So,
butt. I wish I would have stayed in the rental game. I could have, you know, I have this argument with people, or had this argument with one person in particular. He's like, oh, well, you know, the rentals went down in the crash. No, they didn't.
right.
They essentially wobbled 1% that whole from 2008 until 2014. So
Yeah.
if I would have had rentals and bought more rentals at the time instead of the flipping, I'd have been sitting pretty, you know.
So, did you learn from your mistake? And
I did.
when
I
'09
learned.
hit, did you pick up more properties?
Yes. Again, I got out of the crash broke. I had, I think, 1 property at the time, and I went to work for somebody else. I
Hmm.
was project manager, and I pretty much ran his construction, did 300 or 400 properties for the guy over about a 5-year period, give or take. Him and another guy as well. One of them's in these groups, but
Hmm.
did a lot of properties for other people, and just slowly but surely accumulated enough money and, you know, survived essentially. That was my day
Yep.
job, and to where I had enough to buy a decent sized flip. Had a really close relationship and still do with Macomb County Habitat for Humanity, and I
Okay.
bought a property from them that was not an old property at all. And actually, I think it was built in the 2000s, and put
Okay.
a ton of money into fixing it up. Sold it. I flipped again, and made
Hmm.
enough money to where I really, in the 2015 Wayne County auction, I bought 9 properties that year.
Got it.
So it just, you know, it took me a while to make enough money to get back in the game, and then I just kind of never looked back. You know, I'll sell a property here and there, but
Yeah.
generally I'm a buy and hold guy, and I'm 99% Section 8. You know, I don't advertise anything but Section 8 for my rentals. So
Okay. And so, where are your properties now? You said it's in like Macomb County. Do you still have your? Do you still do Detroit properties as well?
most of my properties are in Detroit. Detroit has
Okay.
been monumental for me. That's my
Hmm.
catchphrase. If you look at any of my other videos, is that Detroit is by far the best return on your investment, but it can also be the
Oh,
biggest, you know, problem. You know, the
yes.
biggest risk to your investment is the word I use. But most of my properties are in Detroit. I've got a couple dozen at the time right now.
Okay.
Um, I pretty much just stopped at 20 for like several years. I just said, that's the
Yep.
number, and I don't want it anymore. And then I got bored. Semi-retirement is boring, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um, so I bought more
So,
there. And
real quick, Steve SG had a question. Hey Jay, did you ever think about investing in Chicago while you were working there? If no, why not?
that was actually really early on in my investing, and
Okay.
I never hardly went anywhere. In fact, I was 3 blocks from Wrigley Field, the hospital I was working in, and never went to a Cubs game. So I never really had time to work on stuff. I did go to a Chi Sox game, but not a Cubs game. But it was
Okay.
too early on, and properties back then it's still, Chicago's just expensive. So
Yeah. So, all right. So you were talking about Detroit and the cash flow there, and
Candy, by the way.
it's monumental, huh?
Candy said hi. I didn't see that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Candy said hi. Candy said hi. So, and also, who was that? Val Morgan off of the Facebook group said, do you use a property manager or manage the properties yourself?
I do not use a property manager. I think that they are unnecessary in many cases. There is a reason for them, of course, but in my experience, or at least late experience, the main reason for a property manager, in my opinion, is banging on doors, or that's always been historically the reason you need a property manager, is that the tenant's not paying the rent. So the guy goes, bangs on the door, give me my rent, whatever. Well, number one, in today's world, digital world, you don't have to do that as much. And they definitely don't go bang on the doors. They'll send emails and letters and all that stuff. But so it's not really that necessary anymore. They charge way too much for monthly fees. They charge too much to do repairs. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
You're going to spend 20% of your hard-earned money for a property manager that doesn't do a heck of a lot. In fact, a good property manager, or at least ones that are successful, sometimes they truly don't do things right on purpose so that the tenant moves out so that they can get the repair cost and then the turnover cost and the eviction cost. And they're doing nothing but making money off of you. I've seen it too many times.
Right.
There are good ones out there. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But,
yes, there are.
There's too many that are not. And so I personally don't. I believe that if you are a Section 8 landlord, you do not need a property manager, even if you're out of town. As long as you have some boots on the ground, maybe to show a house or hire just a placement agent. There's a few of them out there that do nothing but put them in, and then that they say goodbye, and then all you need is somebody to repair something if something goes wrong. Everything else is digital. You don't need to be there. And how much money are you saving every month, every year?
Right.
So that's why.
So one thing that I do recommend people do, though, even though you don't have a say if you do go Jay's route and don't have a property manager, you still put in the numbers like you would be paying for a property manager, because now you can either one, pay yourself that, or two, when you get big enough and you want to use a property manager, you're not losing money now because you didn't put that in the numbers to begin with.
Absolutely.
Okay.
One of my early videos, I talked about that 20 house number. And I said, when you get to 20, and the reason why I picked that number is, even if I decided that I did want to move to Florida and didn't want to ever talk to a tenant ever again, didn't want to, and I decided to use a property manager, I would make $500 per house tax-free after everything, which I make a lot more than that. But that was my rock bottom number. And at 20 houses times $500 a month, that's $10,000 a month. I can live comfortably on $10,000 a month, living on a cruise ship or something, whatever. So absolutely. You should always think about those things. Taxes, insurance, everything. Absolutely.
Most definitely. And one thing that I've actually had new investors come to me and ask me, well, I've been thinking about getting to Detroit. I've been thinking about this. And the thing is that if you're not going to do a lot of the legwork to know the Detroit rules and know how it works, I always tell people, I do recommend using a property manager that knows what they're doing in Detroit, who know how to work with Detroit properties, because you can be one day late on, say, a property turnover, and next thing you know, you got a furnace, you got a hot water tank gone,
Definitely. So, that's good advice. You've got to find somebody who knows the business. Same thing with the real estate agent, all that stuff. I probably 10 to 20% of the people that I speak to are newbies in the game that are coming from California, Texas, Israel, or a few friends over there. And they tell me, oh, their agent gave them this house and they want to, of course, do Section 8 to maximize their profits. So that's how they get my name. And I always ask them about your first deal. What are you, are you working on something now? And almost always it's yes, I'm about to buy this property at a good friend of mine that, he says, yeah, I'm 3 or 4 days away from buying this property. I'm technically out of contract, but I'm going to sign an extension in the next day or two and I'm going to buy it in 2 days. And I really want that Section 8 extra money. And I said, okay, well, tell me about it. Oh, well, I'm going to buy this property in a really nice area, $150,000 for a 3-bedroom brick in Detroit. And, there's a tenant in it that's paying, $1,100 a month. So, my numbers, I'm going to walk away with, like $200 every month. I'm like, really? Well, yeah.
And that's a deal?
Yeah, that's your deal. He's like, yeah. And so I started to break down the numbers and I'm like, okay, well, how much are you paying for, he's got a hard money lender, then he's going to refi it. I'm like, okay, I see that taking a lot of your money. Okay, no problem. Well, how much do you have for taxes or for insurance? He's like, oh, like $150 a month. Well, you can save some there. That's generally $50, $75 a month for insurance. No problem. You can save a little there. Well, I've got, $80 a month for taxes. Who told you that? Oh, my real estate agent said that. I said, well, so I showed him there's a website. I'm sure that most of the people in here hopefully have seen it, but the Michigan State Property Tax Estimator, and it's put on by the state of Michigan. And if you look in there, when I pulled up the taxes, he was going to pay about $6,000 a year in taxes.
Way more than $80 a month.
$80 went to $200 just like that, and he's like, oh, well, when I do those numbers, now I'm gonna lose about $50 or $75 a month. Should I still buy it? Well, I'm not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do anything. I'll just explain it. But the point of that is the knowing that you're dealing with somebody that knows what they're doing. That person's agent told him that the taxes were going to be low. So I said, okay, well, either your agent's an idiot or he's unscrupulous. So you need to know which it is. So call that agent right now. You're not under contract, so you can cancel it if you want, which you should, but I didn't say that, ask them, okay, I'm doing my final numbers. I'm paying 100 and however much per, for this house. How much are my taxes going to be next year? It's a test. And of course, the person from, I won't say the name, but, sounds like our team, if you know what I mean, said, oh, yeah, we've looked at that and you're going to be almost the same, maybe $10 more a month or something. And, well, then what kind of agent this is. They're, they just want to sell you a property. Turns out they actually was somebody in their office selling the house, and the guy did back out of it, and I'm very happy for that. But if you have the wrong people that you're working with, you're going to get screwed.
Most definitely. And that's the thing, like, you need to surround yourself with good people. You need to surround yourself with a good team, building that team and going from there. So I definitely recommend that you build that team ahead of time, build that trust going forward, so that you can see how everything will work out. And the thing is that people need people that they trust. Okay. If you do, especially if you're long distance. Okay. So with that being said, you need to, build a team around you that trusts you. So do smaller projects, do smaller deals. Don't go into, a 16 unit apartment building and you're fully hands off.
Absolutely.
It's not going to work.
Find somebody that is willing to help, and doesn't necessarily have any skin in the game for that matter.
Yes.
We talked about this. I don't particularly like the word expert when you say about Section 8. I like the fact that, if anything, I want to be known for is the fact that I give my information freely. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sell anything to anybody. I don't charge for any of the people that I come to, have lunches with or whatever. I'll take a free lunch. As you can tell, I've got a few of those. But there are other people that if you post in any one of these groups saying, hey, I have a question about this, or, I want to know about Section 8, there are other, quote unquote, knowledgeable people inside of the groups. Monique Burns is in our group. She's great. And she actually has a course coming out here pretty soon about how to invest without a property manager from out of state in Section 8. She's very good at that as well. So,
and by the way, Monique Burns is her name. Check her out on YouTube. She does have a big following on YouTube, and she has free content out there on YouTube. So by all means, yes, I agree with Jay. Like, she is a wealth of knowledge on this stuff too.
She's a good person too.
Yes.
Which is just as
100%. So 100%. So she's a great person. So it's funny. It's funny because I went to the Oakland REIT meetup, and I'm not a member. But like the group that they had, like, oh, let's have a meeting and talk about, they were talking about Section 8 at the time. And literally, even though I'm not a member, it's supposed to be like a members only type thing. She just grabbed me and said, oh, you're coming over here. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm coming over there.
Absolutely.
So, great people to be around.
I'm supposed to be starting my first day on the board of the Oakland REIT tomorrow, actually. So
that's awesome.
It's
definitely a great place to network, and especially if you are
Monique.
Oh, there we go. See Monique right there. She just said hi. Check her YouTube channel out. It's right here on the screen. Monique Burns. If you don't know how to spell it, it's right there. She's a great person to be around and love her to death. So, but it's that meetup, especially if you're going to be a landlord, whether it be Section 8 or not, that's out of the question, whatever it is. If you're going to be a landlord, either in Oakland County, anywhere in the Detroit area, okay, it's definitely a group to go, because there's a lot of experienced people where even if it's nothing to do with the board, no offense, just the people who come there are very experienced landlords, and you can ask them anything, and they're always open book people. So
yeah, it's any group is a good group. I'm from Oakland, or that's where I live now, so I suppose that's why but I go to I'll be at the Monzo group meetup tomorrow. I don't know if you guys go there or not. So if you want,
I do go there every once in a while. Just sometimes it falls on a time. It falls on a time where there's like 3 meetings in a week, and it's like, okay, I can only really go to 2 of them. So because I got everyday stuff going. So usually that one falls on the wayside because of that.
Yeah, this week is a busy one, actually. There's not only this tonight, tomorrow, the Monzo, and Thursday is the Metro Detroit Real Estate Investors Group meetup as well.
And also Wednesday is Dean's meetup as well in Novi.
That's too far for me.
Yeah. I like going there, but it's, Ted Tackleberry. He said, hi, Jay, ran, awesome content. I barely ever see him on here. That's awesome. So, and the CEO, which his name, I believe, is Jay as well. So, they have a thing. She's dropping out of state landlords Section 8 without property management. And I think he was talking about Monique. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what she's doing. So,
yep.
And Monique, we talked about Monique being really good in Section 8 as well, but she's also as a property manager. So the fact that she's putting out a course that is about not doing property manager property management is awesome. So actually, we've kind of worked together a little bit on that, kind of collaborated here and there. It's hers. It's not mine, but we've had more than one discussion about it. So she's awesome.
That's awesome. Oh, and the CEO, his name is Pat, not Jay. Oh well.
Hi, Pat.
But yeah, it's the thing is that with Section 8, it's actually very simple. Where there's only a few times that you really would need somebody to do things. I think you need more of a property manager when you're not doing Section 8.
Some people say that the litmus test for whether you need a Section 8 is if you have zero time to do anything. I don't know if I totally agree with that, because if you maybe with filling the properties, but I guess once you get past 20 or 30 or something and you're spending just as much time filling properties as you are buying new ones, maybe if you want to try and scale, I guess I can kind of understand that. I personally would just hire somebody, my own personal whatever, but I can at least understand the argument, I suppose. And who's
this one comes from Freddie Polanco.
Hi, Freddie.
Great guy.
Yes.
He said he could testify that Jay's always there for anyone for any advice. So Jay's a great guy. And Pat, the CEO, says, "Hi Jay, thanks for coming on." So, but yeah, 100. The thing is that I'm all about systems myself. So I'm the type of person that I want to see my business, and I want to put a system involved where eventually I see myself like either putting somebody else in that to take care of it, or it taking care of itself, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So that's kind of where I like to do things.
People ask me, well, what you're saying about a system. That's the one thing I've done classes. I'll sit and talk with anybody. I'll go to see people's houses for the heck of it. I just enjoy talking real estate, helping anybody can. But the system itself, I can give you A and B and then G, L, Z, D, F, Y, but I don't give A to Z. I think you need to find that yourself, or you need to find a program that does. Those systems are great, except it's very hard to find anything that is catered towards Detroit. If we're talking Detroit proper,
Detroit proper
area, you understand that there's a difference. It's a world of difference between Detroit proper and the Detroit metro area.
Yes.
And if you look at Bigger Pockets, some of those podcasts and such, there's some great advice in there, but none of it is catered towards Detroit, and much of it does not apply. I love, I know when somebody was a Bigger Pockets person, when they post in one of the groups and says, "What are the best zip codes in Detroit to do?" It's just like a rookie question. There is no good or bad zip codes in Detroit. They're all good and they're all bad. So,
right.
But anyway, it's great to do some of those things. I'm not a big lover of, paying for too many courses, especially Bigger Pockets and things. If they don't know Detroit, if you're trying to do Detroit proper.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like Detroit proper, people have to understand it's a huge difference. They want to say, "Oh yeah, it's the same thing. I can run it from California." And I'm like, if you don't know, if you go and treat it like a Detroit proper property, like any other property, say in the suburbs or anywhere else, you're going to lose your ass.
Yeah.
Period.
I've seen millionaires walk away crying in Detroit, thinking that it's easy. I read this seminar and, I bought 50 properties and never got one of them finished, or whatever. If you don't have the right people, the right system, the right mindset, I don't care how much money you have, you will lose your ass.
Right. So
never give money up front to contractors in Detroit.
Oh, no. If you give, I'm going to tell you this right now. If you give money, and this is nothing against anyone, But if you give money to your contractor before the job's done, okay, your job's probably not going to get done. Okay. He's already went and spent that money on whatever his vice is.
Boobies and beer. Yeah.
Everyone has a different vice. I'm not, hey, boobies and beer, drugs, whatever. I mean, whatever their vice is, it whatever that is.
So
yeah.
I have many what I call friends, some call them mentees, whatever, that I've helped with a lot of things. And, you know, I'll stay in touch with them for a certain amount of time. And they always seem to always go away and do their own thing for a little while. But I try to check in, or they'll check in with me after a year or 2 years or whatever. And I'm telling you, almost every single one, when I say, you know, have you run into any problems? Oh, yeah, I just got ripped off by this guy. I gave him money, you know, like $2,000 to clean out a house. And you gave it to him up front? Yeah. What is the first thing that I told you about Invest in Detroit? Not to give money up front. Why is it that everybody makes that same mistake? I don't understand that. It's like,
hey, if they need a deposit, like,
yeah, if even
100%.
materials, you know, okay, I'll go buy the materials and I'll meet you there or something, you know. But to take a deposit, I'm sorry, I don't want to say the person's name, but to take give a $2,000 deposit to clean out a house, and that was a big job to clean out. To clean out a house, what did they need to do? Buy garbage bags? You know,
right? Exactly.
Anyway,
you know, like, okay, you need the dumpster. Okay, I'll go buy the dumpster.
Yeah.
Okay. You need to pay your guys. Is it going to take longer than a week? No.
I'll pay you halfway in the, you know, when you're halfway done, I'll pay you halfway. Never go at a time.
Yes.
How do you
100%. That's the key thing is just knowing what to do. Like doing these draws is crazy. So
always have somebody that you can bounce a question off of, even if they aren't even in this business. You know, I'm about to pay this person some money for this. What do you think? Even if they don't know anything about it, and hopefully somebody will smack you upside the head and say, "Do you realize how stupid that sounds?"
Oh yeah.
But anyway.
Ted has a question real quick. How do you source decent contractors / handymen in Detroit with a small portfolio?
You know, I like to start with small jobs. I will go on Facebook Marketplace or, you know, used to be Craigslist or whatever, and post an ad saying, hey, I'm looking for contractors, or I'm looking for handymen, whatever. And if I did find somebody that I thought met the criteria and I wanted to give them a try, I never try new people out on big jobs in any way, shape, or form. Always, you know, if you're a handyman, okay, fine. I got this toilet that needs to be replaced over there. And how did the whole thing go? Did they, you know, take an extra 2 days to do it? Did they want money up front to, you know, to buy the wax ring? You know, I mean, things like that. And then, you know, how it was afterwards. You just have to feel out the situation, then go from there, go slightly bigger and bigger until that you can trust the person. But I don't care if, you know, unless you really are truly, you know, they're in your back pocket, that you know them, you know, you're bringing them to your, you know, barbecues at your house, you know, you need to, you know, you can say, okay, fine, I'm going to give you this big job, but I'm going to give you the materials for it. And then when you get to a certain point, okay, fine, I'll pay you up to that point, but you never pay in advance. Never let them owe you money. You'll never catch back up. I think you started to mention that thing in there. It just, you'll always have a problem. And to be honest with you, there are good contractors that go bad. Maybe for a little while, maybe permanently, maybe they get one of those habits that, you know, type things, you know, whatever it is. But I've had good contractors, a guy that I've actually referred to some people, he probably did 20 houses for me over, you know, a 5-year period or so when I worked for the other guy, whatever, and did a really great job. And then he disappeared and, you know, lost a little bit of money because I trusted him, and he came back and he made things right. But it just very much of, made me realize that you should always still cover your ass. If I can say that online.
No, you're good. Yeah. So one thing that I've noticed is like when we were doing when we had the whole COVID boom with contractors just not being available, they're just too busy and things like that. I would see this from some of my clients that they couldn't get a contractor or they would give the contractor the deposit and the contractor realized that they probably underbid the project. And so now they're going to take their time and doing the project. And in the meantime, they're going to go do this one that they're going to make a lot more money on over here.
Yes.
So now you're going to be on the back burner for nights and weekends or whatever, if they want to even do that.
I think there's a South Park episode about this.
Yeah. So Martin from the Facebook group, Martin, I'm not even going to pronounce that last name. Sorry about that. But he says, I'm a GC in Boston, and not to be confused with Boston Edison. I'm assuming he's talking about Boston, Massachusetts.
Boston.
Boston. I never pay upfront work. Upfront work is paid upon completed stages. Okay. You have to hold the carrot in front of the contractor.
Absolutely.
That is 100% true. I honestly, I know some contractors and they've even told me that. It's just how it is. So Pat from the CEO says that was genius. And
Whatever
he
part.
said he loves this stream. So, but
Jesse.
Yeah, Jesse Basama.
Buzma.
I think
Buzma,
Buzma.
whatever.
All right.
He's a buddy of mine.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Support.
I appreciate it. So one thing that I want to say is that I'm really, really happy that everyone came out and is coming out and talking about this and actually asking these questions and hitting this, so with that, kind of where are you going in the future? Because we kind of seen where you're at right now. You have some property. How many properties do you own right now?
Couple dozen.
Dozen?
I don't want to really go anymore. I consider myself retired essentially.
Okay.
They do pop up. I've bought 4 in the last year, actually 4 or 5. All those, every single one of them, by the way, were karma houses. So karma house meaning I would not have found the deal or bought the house had I not been assisting somebody, helping somebody, looking right. So with the exception of that, it's very rare for me to even want to buy another house. I'll look here and there, but unless it's a good deal, I really don't try to buy something new. So I'm kind of stuck. I'm kind of stuck or staying where I want to be. I take more vacations, than anything. I just got back from China. I think we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. What area in Detroit do you stay on? East side, west side?
I'm mostly the east side. I do have some west side properties. The only reason I have them is karma. Yep. I've got a 2-family in Dexter Linwood area that I bought last year. The same thing. So pretty much of east side, although the east side has its issues. I'm more familiar. I was born on the east side, as I said. So I'm more familiar with it. I'm more comfortable with it. All my guys live at or near the east side. So, if I say, hey, I want you to go all the way to the west side, that's like 45 minutes drive, essentially, extra. It just, so I try to stay away from the west side if I can, just for that reason. I know.
That's understandable. But most of my buyers are trying to buy only on the west side and stay away from the east side.
Absolutely.
So, So Steve actually asked, how do you prevent a contractor from putting a lien on your property only because they are not on the same page with you? For instance, after you're not happy with them and fire them?
That's a good question. I can tell you that 90% or I'm not going to over exaggerate. I'm going to say 70% or more of the contractors in Detroit are not licensed.
Right.
And a non-licensed contractor cannot put a lien on your property.
100%. Now, if you are I want to add to that real quick. If you are having a licensed contractor and you guys do have a scrubber and he's trying to put a lien on it, the best thing you can do is keep meticulous records of everything.
Good point.
Okay. You should be in the first place, should have either the contract, the text messages saying you were unhappy with such and such work, with photos before, photos after, so on and so forth, just for documentation purposes.
Your contract should be pretty ironclad in exactly what it should be, what you're expecting, what they're expecting, the money, how long, who gets money at what time, and the final product, what you're looking for, etc. And if you have a problem, there should be something in there about I'm forgetting the words now. My Gulf War syndrome is kicking in, but you have a third party mediation or something like that, to where something like that can has to be done before they're allowed to put that on there. Because if you have it in a contract, you have a signed contract saying you're not allowed to put a lien on the property until we have this third party mediation, and they do it, you're going to win. So, but again, in Detroit, most of them aren't, which, I should say you should always use a licensed contractor, but there's so few licensed contractors in the city of Detroit that actually are inexpensive enough to use. Unfortunately, so many of them are, want to charge you way too much money for obviously easy things or something, but I won't go into that. That's a whole nother conversation. So,
yeah, I know a few people who be like, hey, they're just trying to survive. They're trying to, but they don't want to go and work for somebody. So they want to have their own business, but they don't really want to go through the licensing process or anything like that. They just want to work an honest day's work, So you get those people. And the thing is that you still, I don't care if they're licensed or they're not licensed, you still have to still get a contract 100%. So, even if it's a written contract on paper on a napkin and you both sign it, I'm not saying you have to have a lawyer draw everything up. There's, if you have something stating, this is what I want, this is what we agree upon, this is how you're going to get paid, and this is the acceptance, so on and so forth.
As somebody said, you can have them sign a lien waiver clause in the contract. Sort of the same thing.
So that's Martin from the Facebook group said that, in the contract, you can have them do that, but if they are licensed, more than likely, they're probably not going to sign that. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Yeah.
So, because that's their only way or only recourse of being able to get the money. If you as the seller, because there are bad landlords out there. It's not just bad contractors. There's bad landlords and cheap people who just don't want to pay. So Absolutely. They got to be protected as well. For this. So what are you planning on doing in the future? You said you're kind of semi-retired and kind of do that. Are you planning on doing some more mentoring? Or
I don't think I'll ever stop that. I get calls every other day. I just went to lunch last week with 4 different people. Candy was one of them, actually. Hi, Candy, again. I've been to lunch with Ted before. Actually, I sold him a house. Now that I think about it.
Ted says, where is Jay's favorite lunch place in Detroit? He goes to so many.
I don't actually like to eat. I know I don't want to make this sound like I'm being prejudicial against the city of Detroit, but I try not to eat in Detroit. Okay. There's one of my favorite mentees, my friends, I should say. Her name is Jing. The reason I went to China, she went to get married there, and she invited me to come, so that's why I went. But
that's awesome.
Our place, I suppose, is this Chinese buffet. She's Chinese, and she goes to a non-Chinese Chinese buffet and 14 in Van Dyke. That's kind of one of my, hey, buffets are great for fat.
Oh my God, I love that place, actually.
Yeah.
I love that
Uh,
place. I've been there many
I don't mind
times.
where we go. Some people want to go to some wacky. I don't like Thai food and I don't like sushi, but other than that, I can pretty much eat anything. So
Yeah,
I'm not that picky about stuff. So just wherever is convenient for people, I suppose.
that's awesome. So with that being said, like what is your
Jumping off
plans?
subject here.
Yeah. So
I don't think
what's
I'm
your
going to
plans for
stop.
the future?
I'm not going to stop helping anybody that ever wants it. I don't be sitting holed up in a bed or something, on a
Yep.
heart monitor or something. I'm going to be talking to people. I suppose I just enjoy it. As far as I'm sure I will pick up more properties, even though I'm not like actively going nuts about it.
Hmm.
I've got another class that I want to do here actually on Section 8 soon. I'd like to put together a little bit more of a central place for all the classes that I've done to try and
Okay.
help people. And I don't charge for any of that stuff. Again, like I said, I do have a group for anybody that is into Section 8 in the Metro Detroit area. That is, I created it because I was running out of tenants actually. And I thought, so I'll just search for Detroit Section 8 in Facebook. And I
Yep.
found two groups, and one had 8 users in it, and one had 12 or something, and neither one
Hmm.
had been used in the last year. So I created a group, the Metro Detroit Section 8 group, whatever. And
Hmm.
I've had it about 2 years now, and there's 22,000 members in it. So apparently, there's a lot of people that want to know about Section 8. So
Oh
uh,
yeah.
I spend a lot of time monitoring, admin, whatever you want to call it, that, and a couple other little ones. But if you do want to get into a group that all about Section 8, that's a good one to start.
Most definitely. I think you need to do your research. You need to figure out. So, actually, Martin from the Facebook group says I plan. I've been researching Detroit heavily and been planning a flight down there. Before I purchase a property. Great, honestly, best thing you could do.
Absolutely.
So, I would like to connect with you guys, and when I'm down there, by all means, reach out to us. We're happy to. But that kind of brings me up another thing is if somebody is brand new, say to Section 8, how are they looking? What do they need to look for? How do they screen their tenants properly? What's the best and how do they get signed up to do Section 8? Is there a Section 8 process to sign up for?
It is the exact opposite of what most people think. And again,
Hmm.
I've done a whole class. If you go to that group and you do join the group, in the featured section is a video that I did on what is Section 8, how you get into it, how, what to do, not to do,
Hmm.
everything about Section 8, and we're afraid to ask type situation. The shortest answer to that right now is you find a tenant that is on Section 8 and
Hmm.
they give you paperwork, you fill it out, and then the property is inspected by Section 8 after you find the tenant. It's not the other way. Most people think, oh, I go to a Section 8 office and sign up as a Section 8 landlord. No, you don't do that. It's the opposite. So,
And what's their inspection entail? Is it on par with, say, the city inspection? So if you get a city certification,
if if you pass a city inspection, chances are, with some very, very minor details, you'll pass a Section 8 and vice versa. They
okay.
have slightly different, HUD or Section 8 is a HUD inspection essentially, and the city's inspections generally go off of HUD guidelines.
Okay.
So it's generally pretty close to the same. Sometimes they, one will say you have to have screens. Section 8, you have to have screens. The city generally is a little different on that. Where the
Hmm.
smoke detectors are or carbon monoxide is a slightly different. Other than that, most of it is the same. Uh,
Hmm.
I would have to say Section 8 can be a little bit tougher, but that's just based on the fact that the inspectors are kind of held to a higher standard.
Hmm.
The standard is the same, as in, if they had truly a list of everything that they have to check, they both have essentially the same list. City inspectors are a little bit more lax than a Section 8 inspector because that's truly by HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and they can be zapped if they don't do a good job. So there are some Section 8 inspectors that are famous for being
Hmm.
pains in the butt. There's certain places, Plymouth, Westland, et cetera, they have the hardest inspector of pretty much of all of them. So, but
Most
they're
definitely.
still fair. If you're a slumlord, don't go to Section 8. In fact, 20 years ago, if somebody would have asked me 20 some years ago, should I be a, Section 8 landlord in Detroit? I would say no, because there's no good properties. There wasn't very many good landlords. They were all just junk essentially at the time. And the city didn't care about inspections back then. So it didn't work out very well. But if your property is in fairly decent shape, chances are you'll pass an inspection. Safety, sanitary, security is really the three things. As long as your property is safe, sanitary, and secure, doesn't have lead paint chips all over the place, etc., you'll pass.
So Samir Zakem, and I'm probably mispronounced that last name, on Facebook said, "Are there specific agencies that you would recommend staying away from working with?"
That depends on the month sometimes. I would suppose that if you asked 99 people that deal with Section 8 in the city of Detroit, that Detroit housing is the one that some people try to shy away from. And there are times that I have said, I don't want to take any Detroit Section 8 or Detroit Housing Commission Section 8 right now, because they, at one time I actually had 3 months to wait for an inspection.
Oh, wow.
And that's crazy. They're not that far anymore, and they're okay in other areas. They're actually, their inspectors are some of the more lenient ones. And even though it takes a little longer to get paid, you'll always get paid. I personally, the three that I dislike the most, I suppose, or sometimes have issues with, Inkster specifically, they're run terribly, or they were. I haven't dealt with them in almost a year now, but they're terribly run, I suppose. I went for 2 years waiting for a rent increase, and at the end, they finally came to me and said, "Okay, we're going to take care of this now. I'll give you backdated 1 month." And that's it. I'm like, "No, I asked for this increase 2 years ago. You need to give me 2 years." And like, "Nope, we don't have it in the budget." "Okay, well, I'm raising the rent next month." "Nope, we don't have it in the budget." Nobody will tell you that but Inkster.
Wow.
Plymouth and Westland, they're good people that work there. I don't have a problem with that, but their pricing is lower than most, and their inspectors are really tough in Livonia. Other than that, RPI is pretty good. Every one of them is good, and every one of them is bad. You'll never get through on the phone on virtually any of them. Sometimes it takes forever to get an email back, but they're still worth dealing with. You'll always get paid eventually, and that's really all that matters.
Most definitely. So Martin from Facebook said, "I'm worried about permits being issued on a timely manner," which is actually that's a city issue. That's going to be anywhere. That's going to be the city commission in whatever city you're trying to get that in. Every city is a little bit different, but with how are you screening your tenants with Section 8? And the next question is, there's been a bad stigma of, well, I just don't want that type of tenant that's Section 8. They're bad tenants. So what do you say to that?
Okay, I've told this story many times, I suppose, but I guess I'll try and make it short here. I don't want to say forever, but I've been in the Metro Detroit Facebook groups for, I don't know, many, many years now, 7, 8 years. And I think the very first group meetup that I went to was probably 7 or 8 years ago, something like that. And I met a gentleman that's actually well known in the group. And I walked up to him, started talking, we're just chatting about real estate. And some young lady walked up to us and said, "Hi, my name is so-and-so, and I want to buy properties in Detroit, and I want to rent them Section 8. What do you think?" And I turned to this fine young friend and said, "Jeff, what do you think?" And he's like, "Oh, you tell me." I'm like, I'm new in the group. I didn't really want to say anything, but so I tried to ask him. No, you tell me what you think first. I said, "Okay, well, depends on the property, depends on the area, depends on the city, depends on the tenant, the housing agency, but overall, it's a good program. If all these things meet, the C and D, areas, you're not going to get it in Bloomfield or anything like that. It's not worth it, etc. But overall, it can be a good program." And I turned to him and, "What do you think?" And, I'm telling you, it seemed like his his face turned purple and a big old vein popped up over here. And he's like, oh my God, in 1978, I had this tenant that destroyed my house and I called and complained to Section 8 and they laughed at me and said, ha ha ha, we got another stupid landlord, and hung up on me. I'll never deal with them again. Now, that's a total exaggeration of the story, and it didn't happen that way. But that's essentially the gist he was trying to get across, is that it's the worst thing ever, and you should never do it. It's not like that. In fact, so much so that I argue on Facebook groups quite a bit, when somebody says that there's terrible, and I don't necessarily just try to defend Section 8, but I give my experiences and say, it's not really like that anymore. It's not like it was 30 years ago. There are whatever. But so in the Oakland REA, we had probably 4 months ago, something like that, 5 months ago, they had a panel of Section 8 people, which included 2 housing agency people. And I went to it, and I always want to learn new stuff, so I just went there as a Joe, regular Joe, and they talked about everything Section 8. And in that, someone had mentioned about, well, what happens if somebody causes damage, or what happens if somebody's kicked off the program? And they had mentioned, oh, well, they would be kicked off if they did some damage, but they can always appeal, and most of the appeals get put back on. But they didn't explain the situation, and that became the gospel for, there's one particular person that was in that REA that's on the board. It was on the board. And I went to that specific person that said that and got the straight poop. And then I went around to every single housing agency I could talk to that I could get a hold of. It took me several months to do it, and I still have my numbers that I haven't really posted. But the gist of it is that if you talk to any housing agency and ask them how many people, the way I did, how many people are kicked off Section 8 for damage, bad tenants, etc., not talking about not doing their paperwork, which is what that person was talking about that day. So, and the answer was almost the same throughout every single one of the housing agencies, which I think I have 10 or 12 of them that I asked. 3 to 5% of Section 8 tenants are kicked off the program for being damaged or, not paying rent, not paying the utilities, whatever. The rest of those people are people that just didn't turn in their paperwork. So, and then they can appeal that, and and at the review hearing, they'll say, well, did you fill out your paperwork? Yeah, I filled it out afterwards, even though I was kicked off. And they said, okay, we'll put you back on. But a person that causes damage is not just that easy to get put back on, especially if there's any kind of judgment or anything. If you get a judgment against a Section 8 tenant, they're done. There is no appeal. If you have a money judgment against them, it's an automatic, you're done. You're not getting back on, period. Unless you pay off that judgment, I suppose. And then you got to.
And that's actually reason I like Section 8 tenants, is because they know that. So they are going to do everything that they can to make sure that they'll work with you. They'll see what they can do. They don't want no judgments against them. They don't want to get off the program.
Yeah.
Who wants to get off a program where they're getting free rent?
Yeah. If you were rough, hard, had a problem, broke a leg or something, lost your job, got put in a homeless shelter, tried to clean yourself up, and somebody came up to you and said, hey, buddy, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to give you a free rent or lower income rent. All you got to do is not destroy the house. Are you going to destroy the house? Not a normal, sane person, I suppose. There are a few exceptions. I've had one sort of bad tenant myself, but wasn't even that bad. So, hi, Brian, Bo, technically.
So yeah, Bo, Brian, and I guess said, hey, Jay, how's it going? My good man. But the Martin from Facebook said he always had 6 photos of every room, 4 walls, floors, ceilings, and had them sign on the condition of the house. Absolutely. That's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. Whatever makes you feel safe as a landlord to get things moving forward, do it. Okay. What are they going to do? No, I'm not going to do that. Well, okay, then you're not going to, we'll tear up the lease right now. I'll find another tenant.
Yep.
You know, so, you know, Joe Smith said, don't forget about your houses and check on them regularly.
Yes.
That is true. But one thing you got to make sure is in your lease, you have to have a clause for that. If you don't, then they don't have to let you in.
That's another important part of any landlording for anybody that's in here, whether you're Section 8 or not. Make sure that you have a good lease that shows everything. You can get leases from a multitude of people. And then absolutely I have a 24-hour notice that I can call or text you and say in 24 hours, I can come and look through the house. And if they don't like it, I can just use my key to get in. Just that simple. Right. So it does help. That's kind of another good thing about Section 8. I've known many landlords that, that tenant, that person's been, renting for me for 5 years. Well, how many times have you been in the house? Once in the last 5 years. It's like, okay, they're paying the rent. That's great. But,
right.
Do you really know what your property? Well, Section 8, they do an inspection 1 or 2 years every year or every 2 years. So you kind of have an idea of what's going on. You should know often. I have it in my lease that, the tenant should be replacing their smoke detector batteries if they have any, like most of them are to the 10 years now, but, or the furnace filters. And it doesn't hurt to send your guy to every one of your houses once a year with some furnace filters and, hey, I'm just here to put in the furnace filter. And while they're there, look around, see how things are.
Yep. 100%. So, Monique says, I go see how they live before I move them into my house. It's kind of an fun, unusual. They show me their slumlord issues.
Yes.
So
that's kind of a vetting your tenant 101. You can do background checks if you want. You can check their credit. I don't even do that stuff half the time. What I do is I talk to the people. One thing I'm kind of famous for is I will always be at the curb when they drive up. I'm late for a lot of things, but for when meeting a tenant for the first time or a prospective tenant, I'm always there early so that I can be at the curb when they drive up. I open the door for them. And I'm not doing it to be nice. I'm a nice guy and all, but I do it because I want to see the inside of their car. If the inside of their, if they have to,
and Joe Smith just said that, check their cars.
If you have to, if they kick out 2 weeks worth of McDonald's wrappers to get out of the car, well, that's what they're going to do to your house. I'm not saying that somebody that is dirty is going to be a bad landlord, but at least you know where you stand. I will go to, if I look at their car and they kind of sound right, how they're dressed, how their kids, I've had kids, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids come up to me, how are you, sir? How are you, and dressed great and just very polite. And I've had 6 and 7-year-old kids call me a white boy, stupid white boy and stuff right there in front of their kids. And, no big deal. It's how they, that to me is an automatic, okay, have a nice day. See you later.
Yep.
But all those things go into, how you feel about the person. You put it all in the computer upstairs. There's a lot more, of course, but if you're comfortable, I take the applicant or their actual move-in packet. I almost never sign it right then and there. I have them sign it, but not me. I always try to, if I'm have the least bit of doubt, I will go to their house. I always make sure I get a copy of their license, their social, the right address, and I will drive by their house. If I see 4 couches and 5 cars on their front lawn, well, I know that they're going to do that to the house. If it looks fairly okay and I still am not convinced, I will call them up from a block or 2 away and said, hey, I forgot to have you sign this one piece of paper. Let's, I'm going to be over there in a minute or 2. I'll be at your house. And I pull up and I try to get out. Hey, let's go to your kitchen table. If they won't let me in the house, they don't want me to come to the house, or they won't let me in no matter what, that tells you something. If they let you in and you have to tiptoe over dog piles, then you know that that's what's going to happen to your house. And if all of that stuff works out and you're comfortable, do what you got to do.
Most definitely. So Martin from the Facebook group says, quick money saving tip. Instead of putting mats on the steps and prevent slip and falls, we would paint them and throw fine sand in the paint for grip. Super cheap. So, hey, that's a good thing. So how, first off, this has been very helpful for everybody, for new people out there. I really appreciate it. Obviously you have your phone number here. Is that the best way for people to contact you?
Yeah.
What, how can people send you a text? Okay.
Send me a text if you have a question, or call me and say you're busy. I pretty much talk to people all day. You can on Facebook, of course, just send me an instant message there. I don't mind if you friend me or something. It doesn't bother me. I'm not one of those guys. Again, through one of the groups, you can always ask questions in there, or just send it to me directly.
Most definitely. What's the best way that you are finding tenants at the moment?
Facebook Marketplace, Facebook period. I will post it in my own group, and then when you go to post it, we'll ask you, do you want to add it to these other groups? And I have 9 or 10 other groups. Detroit Sell All, Detroit Rentals, Detroit Apartments, Detroit Sell Everything, whatever, for Detroit houses, of course.
Yep.
And I will put it in all those, including Marketplace. And that has always been historically the best place for me. Some people use affordablehousing.com, which is the official Section 8 or HCV program, is actually what it's called, Housing Choice Voucher Program. It's their official place, but I get next to nothing from there. Some people pay money for it and they do well. I've never done well. So you can do, some people use Zillow. I don't particularly in Detroit think people use Zillow as much as Facebook Marketplace, but that's always a good thing. I have never listed a house for rent on the MLS, especially not in Detroit. I just don't understand that. So, no agent would very rarely would want to. So,
yeah, I mean, it's Detroit, so they're probably not going to step foot in it because they
word
don't
of
make
mouth,
too much money.
Word of mouth, talk to your tenants and tell them, hey, I've got properties coming up, and, these groups, etc. Just post in there saying I've got properties for rent. Sometimes that stuff helps out too.
Awesome. So, I really do appreciate you coming on here, Jay. And, if anybody has any questions for him, get a hold of him, contact him. Go from there. I really do appreciate not only that, everyone here from our Facebook group has come out, anybody that I know, but all your supporters that come out and watch this. So I really do appreciate it. And, I'm happy. I'm always happy when I get to talk to you because, no matter what, if I got a question for you, you're going to be straight with me. So that's the honest to God.
You may not like my answer, but at least it'll be honest.
Exactly. I have, what's funny about that is, just for a quick story, is there was I talked with a lot of wholesalers. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'd be happy to JV on this. And then a lot of times when they come to me, it's like last minute. Oh, I need to close on this week. Well, first off, when they say that to me, I know I'm probably not going to be able to help them. But I try to tell them, hey, this is a teaching opportunity. All right. So I look at it. I'm like, okay, no problem. They're asking, it's a 83 conventional, 77 cash. It was a turnkey rental in Detroit on the west side over by Southfield Freeway. Okay. And it was, so I asked him, I'm like, okay, doesn't matter what I think ARV is. What do you think ARV is? So he screenshotted one for 83 right down the street. That was less than 6 months ago. I'm like, okay. He's like, so I think ARV is about 85K. I'm like, okay. Respectable, sure. Now, as an investor in Detroit, not being brick, it's frame. Even though it's turnkey, investors need to buy at 70 to 75% of ARV. And you're saying it's already worked, so it means you're already at ARV, so it needs to be 75% or 70 to 75% of that 85,000. Oh, that's just not going to work. We got cash offers higher than that. I go, then why didn't you take them?
Yeah.
Take them and run. Because
that's just what they say to, yeah.
Yeah. I go, in Detroit, people need a higher return for their investment because of a lot of reasons. One, there's not a lot of appreciation, so they need that higher cash flow in order to do that. So, as well as the risk.
I still think that in Detroit, if you pay more than it should be 50 to 70,000 right now is a turnkey property. I'm not saying they happen every day, but they do happen. Mm-hmm. And you can make money based on those numbers. And if you go over that, especially with the fact that taxes are really starting to get wacky, not that they've gone up, but they're, making sure that, when you buy a property at 50,000, you're paying taxes based on 50,000 when it wasn't that way for a long time. Hi, Bree.
Oh, yeah.
Bree's awesome.
Bree, yeah. Awesome.
So,
and Ted said he wants to, when can we meet for lunch?
You got my number, man.
Awesome.
Yeah. So,
yeah. It's just crazy. It's stuff like that where I end up turning that into a teachable moment because he may walk away and he may think like I'm just being ridiculous, but you're somebody either from out of state trying to wholesale it, and you don't know the area. I do,
knowledge is power.
100%. So it's 100% great. So 9 out of the 10 deals that I look at are just not deals, because I JV a lot and I encourage anybody, I'll give you my open and honest opinion on any property. And if I don't know that much, I'll tell you straight up, I don't know that much, things like that.
That's one of my favorite lines is I have no freaking clue about that. And I don't want to say something, that I don't know anything about. So
most definitely.
Oh, Jay.
So Jay Jones says JP has helped me out on Section 8 questions. Shout out to you. By all means, and if anybody hasn't seen Real Estate Jay Jones, his YouTube channel is really great. We had him on the podcast 2 podcasts ago, and he was an awesome guy. So he's an awesome guy. So huge, great investor as well.
Do what you can to save money. By the way, I've kind of got to give a shout out myself.
Yes,
I'm
please do.
Proponent of Macomb County Habitat for Humanity or any of the Habitat for Humanities.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to save money on doors, windows, all kinds of neat stuff, go to the Habitats. There's the Macomb ones are a Topher or was it 8.5 and Van Dyke, and then 21 in Van Dyke.
Okay. Yep.
Otherwise, any of the Habitats I think is a great charity to work with. So you can save a lot of money buying stuff from there, of course. So.
Oh yeah, I've seen. I've done that. I've seen that, and then I had. I actually have a few family members that had the Habitat for Humanity. They built houses for people, and they live in one of the Habitat for Humanity houses, because they're low income, and it's just it helped them be a homeowner when they couldn't normally be. So big shout out to that community. The Habitat for Humanity is great. And I've been there. I've been to the Detroit one as well, which is, I think it's like Greenfield or something like that.
It has been closed for about 4 or 5 years now.
Oh, man.
Supposedly reopening up, but yeah, they had 2 of them, the last I saw, but they closed that at least, I think 2019 now, something like that.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been there, but any of those, they have great things where it's a deal,
Yeah.
So you need a new door frame or you need a new door or whatever. You're probably going to put a little bit of elbow grease into it, sand it down, paint it, but you're going to get it cheaper there than you will at Home Depot, so way by drones.
Yeah.
So Albert was asking, do you have a YouTube channel or a website?
I do not. I don't sell anything per se. So I try not to market myself in that way. If you really want to get a hold of me, again, you've got my phone number on the screen. The group, if you go to Facebook and type in the search and type Detroit Section 8, the very first group that will pop up says Section 8 housing with a red background, black and white, right? That's my group. Like I said, I started that about 2 years now, and it's, you can always catch me there. If you have questions about Section 8, that you can go in the discussion there and ask questions in there. There's chats in there, et cetera, and it's totally free of spam and crap like that. So me and my admins do a good job of keeping crap out.
And if you're just listening, by the way, his number is 248-764-9030.
765.
Okay? Sorry,
Randy.
See, let me do this. 248-765-9030. 248-765-9030. So give him a call, check him out, see what we can do. Like I said, he's a great guy to work with. Also, if you're a new wholesaler and you need any help with anything, I'm an open book, and doing everything. I'll work with anybody. I'll talk with anybody if you just want a quick conversation, 20 minutes, perfectly fine. If you want a one-on-one, an hour-long session, as long as we record it, it's free for content.
So, I just need a free lunch out of it. No, I'm just kidding.
Kidding. I'm trying to lose some pounds. So
yeah, I know
I don't need to lose the weight. I've been going to the gym, 3 to 4 days a week. So
invite me to your gym to talk about real estate for 2 hours, and I will be just fine. I've never tried that one. That's a good one to try, actually. Thanks for bringing that up, Randy.
That's awesome. So we're way over on time, but I'm happy we are, because this was a wealth of knowledge. I really do appreciate it. I'll bring you down and just stay behind. We'll talk a little bit after, and then go from there. All right.
I'll have to do this again sometime.
We will, most definitely.
I'll go play my fake piano behind me that I don't actually.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I really do appreciate you coming on and, showing support, listening to this. And, please do check out our next episode. If you want to see our previous episodes, check them out. But check out our upcoming episode. We do this every other week. Okay. I'll bring a new guest on. We'll talk about something different. I'm trying to we talk about anything real estate related. So with that all being said, everyone, let's all do deals together. Thank you. Have a good night.
Once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too. Sneaking looks up and down from across the room.